Chapter 26-29. There's no way the saint would allow such a threatening opponent to exist. Besides, they're still in their honeymoon period, and won't fall out with each other for the time being. Could there be such an earth-shattering expert in this world? Why haven't we heard of him before? Mo Tianji said. That's right. However, even if we haven't heard of him, the East Emperor Demon Empress should know. Why didn't they mention him? This doesn't make sense. Could it be that they don't know? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and they were all a little worried. Everyone felt that this mysterious expert who suddenly appeared was extremely mysterious and confusing, especially when they didn't know whether he was friend or foe. They didn't know how to deal with him. Of course, Chu Yang and the rest didn't know that these 4 elves were the 4 elven gods, and that the mysterious and powerful figure they were talking about was Chu Yang himself. If he knew, Minister Chu would probably burst out laughing on the spot. The 4 elven gods would never have thought that among the group of young men and women who passed by, one of them was the one they were deeply afraid of, and the one they had to deal with, Chu Yang. These 2 parties actually brushed past each other without any sparks, and neither of them knew each other. Archer God, I was only thinking about how to deal with Chu Yang just now and didn't pay attention to those little fellows. They seem to be very powerful. The human race is really full of talents. In the entire elven race, even when the Empress was still around, we didn't have such outstanding seedlings. The power god turned back and looked at the empty sky in the distance. Sigh, it's already so late. You still have the mood to care about whether they're powerful or not. Don't create unnecessary trouble. The archer god was a little dejected. A group of young men we randomly met has such profound strength. The Celestial Imperial Court is really not a place where people like us can survive. I hope we can successfully get the Elven Emperor's seal this time and defeat the extraterrestrial demons. I'll retire from this world and never get involved in worldly affairs again. This Celestial Imperial Court suddenly feels full of danger. For hundreds of thousands of years, I've never felt such danger. But now, I feel more and more threatened. This is really a strange feeling. Yes, there are many things that I thought I've already seen through clearly, but after coming into contact with the truth, I realized that there are some secrets behind it. Human thoughts are really too complicated and too strange. The other 3 shook their heads and sighed at the same time. If it was just a game of force, the elves might not be afraid of anyone. But now, in just a few short days, even the high-level elves like them had developed a subtle feeling of infinite fear towards the schemes of humans. Unfathomable. Unfathomable. Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Zi Xiecheng glared fiercely at Xie Danxiong, who was tied up like a meat dumpling. Her gaze was exceptionally ferocious, as if she wanted to swallow him whole. Xie Danxiong looked like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He lowered his head and looked pitiful as he admitted his guilt. Do you know your mistake now? Zi Xiecheng was furious. She shouted, You just went out like this. If something happens, how am I going to answer to your brothers? How are you going to explain this to your big brother? How was he going to explain this to his sister-in-law? How could he treat Danfeng? Before he could finish his sentence, Xie Danxiong lowered his head and said, I was wrong. You're wrong. Zi Xiecheng, who was furious, was suddenly stunned. For a moment he actually felt that his anger had been blocked. He couldn't vent his anger, or rather, he had nowhere to vent it. After a while he suddenly shouted, You're wrong. You still know your mistake. What's the use of knowing your mistake? What's the use of telling me? Do you think I won't beat you up just because you say you're wrong? Dream on. Then he shouted again. Puff puff puff. Punches and kicks. Xie Danxiong screamed exaggeratedly and rolled around on the ground like a rubber ball. But he was lamenting in his heart. I came at such a bad time. Even if I met Butian Sa or Qianqian, I wouldn't be so unlucky. At least she didn't have to be so violent, right? This big sister Z is really too violent. I already admitted my mistake at the first moment. And she still beat me up. Sigh, boss is so pitiful. Humph. What's the use of admitting your mistake? Zi Xiecheng said angrily. If I don't beat you up properly, you won't learn your lesson. Let's see if you still dare to do it. She continued to beat him up. Crackle crackle crackle. Xie Danxiong wanted to cry. I'm wrong. I won't dare to do it again. I'm really wrong. I'll change, I'll do it, okay? Help. The new Jade Flower Emperor Xie Danxiong finally couldn't help but cry for help. He really couldn't take it anymore. It was really too painful. Big Sister Z, you're really an expert at beating people up. You especially hit the most painful part. Did you learn this from boss? At this moment, a voice suddenly said, Okay, we're here to save you. You're saved. Xie Danxiong stared blankly for a moment. He was pleasantly surprised. Heaven has opened its eyes. However, a thought flashed through his mind, and he instantly realized who the speaker was. His smile froze on his lips. I'm screwed this time. An even more ruthless person has arrived. No, a group of even more ruthless people. As expected, a series of voices sounded again. Help? Okay, then I'll save you first and continue to beat you up. You despicable Xie Tu. Today, I'll make you a living rabbit. Damn you. You need to be taught a lesson. Beat him up hard. No need to save me face. Another voice said, Big sister, you're tired. Take a rest first. Wait for us to teach him a lesson. Today we must beat him up into a pulp. Flowers bloom. Jade flower doesn't bloom either. Beat him up. Along with this voice, there were already 3 people who rushed up like hungry tigers and took over Zi Xieching's beating job. They were GMO Luo Kadi and Rui Butong. Xie Danxiong didn't even know how to shout for help now. He was scared silly. Big sister could still hold back a little when beating people up. There were still some places where she was embarrassed to call for help. But these 3, why were they here? There was no such thing as embarrassment for them. Zi Xieching turned around and saw that Chu Yang and the rest were already standing at the door, rubbing their fists and watching Xie Danxiong get beaten up. Even Chu Yang, who always maintained unity, and Mo Tianji, who always looked at the big picture, didn't stop them this time. They were even eager to give it a try. Boss. Xie Danxiong just called out twice, but GMO had already used his sleeve to cover his mouth. Beat him up hard. Chu Yang said these 3 words. Then, he looked at Zi Xieching with a beaming smile and said very gently, Are you okay? Even the best face-changing master in Sichuan opera would have to admit defeat at the speed of this face-changing. Zi Xieching snorted and said, If your brothers didn't make me so angry, I would be better for sure. Chu Yang laughed and said, Yes. Aren't there already people helping you vent your anger? Let's go, it's too messy here. Let's go inside and talk. Then Tai Butian, Mo Qinggu, and the other 2 gathered around Zi Xieching. Everyone chattered for a while and was extremely affectionate. Why did you all suddenly come back? Have you settled everything over there? Zi Xieching smiled. Wasn't it because I heard that something happened over here? Why didn't I rush back? Chu Yang flattered. Humph. What a coincidence that all of you are together. Also, GMO and Luo Kadi, didn't you stay behind to help Gu Duxing? Why did these 2 guys also come together? Chu Yang sighed. Then he grimaced and said, Originally, the 2 of them were left for Gu Duxing as helpers. But they caught up with us after we left for half a day. It can't be helped. These 2 guys are most afraid of Gu Duxing. Moreover, Beluching has also recovered, so they were directly driven out by Gu Duxing. Zi Xieching couldn't help but laugh. I see. Actually, everyone knew in their hearts. Gu Duxing would never drive out these 2 big helpers. But the heavenly armament pavilion of the big western heaven had already recovered a lot. Most importantly, the experts of the Saint Monarch and Saint Emperor Palace had basically all left the big western heaven. As for the remaining ones, Gu Duxing and Beluching were confident that they could completely deal with them. And the Demon Emperor Heaven's side was the most important at the moment. Gu Duxing was only afraid that Chu Yang and the rest weren't strong enough, so he drove GMO and Luo Kadi out to help. Everyone knew and understood this kind of intention. Listening to Xie Danxiong's groans and screams outside, rising and falling one after another, Zi Xieching was actually a little worried. It's about time. Don't fight and cause trouble. I'm not afraid of injuries, but don't hurt your own brother's feelings. It's okay. Mo Tianji was calm. We all know, we won't hurt our feelings. Just as he finished speaking, they heard a loud boom. They could see Mo Yuntian's Jade Flower Emperor being kicked into the air like a ball. GMO flew up and sent out another kick. The landing point was right on Xie Danqiong's buttocks. Xie Danqiong flew to the other side like a meteor. Luo Kadi stretched out his fist and kicked. With a roar, he kicked Xie Danqiong to the other side like a rubber ball. On that side, Rui Butong yelled excitedly. With a big kick he kicked him back. Everyone's eyebrows jumped fiercely. Fuck. This is really explosive. Puff. Xie Danqiong finally struggled to spit out the ball of cloth in his mouth and shouted. The three of you wait. Ouch. After a long time, Xie Danqiong was dragged in by the three panting people. He was loosened and his cultivation was restored. The moment Xie Danqiong regained his freedom, he wanted to jump up and fight GMO to the death. I'm so angry. No matter what, I'm still a celestial emperor. The three of you actually kicked me like a rubber ball. You don't take me seriously at all. Gu Duxing wasn't here, and Chu Yang insisted on experimenting on his own. Therefore, Mo Tianji was now the one with the most authority. All the brothers hung their heads. Although they were still a little unhappy, they didn't say anything. Mo Tianji's words were undoubtedly reasonable. It's settled then. Chu Yang stood up. There's no time to lose. We must start preparing now. Let's find a place to fight. Let's fight until I'm exhausted. Cough cough cough. GMO and Luo Kadi's eyes flickered as they quietly slipped away. Beat you to the point of exhaustion? Then wouldn't the two of us have been tortured to death by you? This kind of self-torture. They definitely couldn't do it. The two of them had just retreated when they were stopped by Chu Yang and Mo Tianji's sharp eyes. It doesn't matter who is missing. Neither of you can escape. GMO and Luo Kadi wailed at the same time. Big brother. There's no room for discussion. Mo Tianji's face was stern. I'll join too. Mo Qingwu was eager to try. Me too. Zi Xieching had never fallen behind. Me too. Once Chu Luer opened her mouth, everyone felt a chill. The little girl rolled her eyes and chuckled. I won't use poison. That's good enough, right? Hearing that, everyone finally heaved a sigh of relief. As long as you don't use poison, everything is fine. If poison is used, then it's better for everyone to stay away from it. You and your elder brother can go and play by yourself. Us too. Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian also stood up. Along the way, their strength had improved by leaps and bounds. They had already reached the level of saints. Although there was still a considerable gap between them and the average strength of most people, they weren't so weak anymore. We can't always hide behind you. Tai Butian smiled and said, I'm also a little tired of hiding behind the scenes and strategizing. We have to see a real battle. Chu Yang grinned and said, all right. He didn't object because Chu Yang knew that this was an inevitable outcome. At the same time, it was also a necessary process. If Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian couldn't improve as soon as possible, they would be left far behind. Not to mention other things, just their lifespan wouldn't be able to keep up. There was no need to even mention anything about eternity. The two of us will join in the fun too. Otherwise, Yang Chu's strength is still not easy to exhaust. It's better to settle this quickly, isn't it? The Demon Empress and Dong Huang smiled, looking as if they were here to help too. At this moment, Chu Yang's face finally collapsed. You'll join in too? Then after this battle, the duration will be reduced by a lot. But at the very least, I'll be skinned alive by you guys. Looking at the opponents in front of him, Chu Yang immediately regretted it. Chapter 2633. Along the way, although everyone's speed was very fast, everyone could feel that everyone was trying their best to control their speed and didn't really exert their speed to the limit. Moreover, along the way, Xie Danqiong and Rui Butong were whispering at the side, as if discussing something. The five women were also huddled together, and GMO and Luo Kadi were also huddled together, discussing something. Everyone's expression was very nervous. Mo Tianji, who was in control of the overall situation, also gathered together with the East Emperor Demon Empress, constantly deducing and calculating, thinking about whether there was anything missing. Only Chu Yang, who bore the most risk, was the most at ease. He took the lead and flew in front. The gust of wind blew his hair up. It also made his thoughts drift along with the wind. As he walked all along the way, his mind was completely clear, and there was no shock, terror, or joy in it. Ever since he went to the big western paradise and saved Gu Duxing from danger, until today, Chu Yang had a feeling more and more. It seemed that his path in this world was gradually coming to an end. This didn't mean that his death was near and his road ahead was coming to an end, but that he could feel that the Heaven Imperial Court also had its limits. Outside, there was a wider world waiting for him. Actually, Chu Yang had this feeling before, when he was at the Heaven Imperial Court. At that time, it was after he eliminated the Dharma Supreme, and his strength climbed to the peak of the Heaven Imperial Court. Looking at the world, there was no longer any opponent. Or it could be said that it was a kind of loneliness of an expert. It was just that at that time, he still knew what his road ahead was. There was a higher Heaven Imperial Court. There were generations of brothers waiting in front of him. And there were also extraterrestrial demons waiting for him to destroy. And so on and so forth. But now, he had once again climbed to the peak of the Heaven Imperial Court. There might still be opponents ahead, but only the Saint Lord was an unprecedented enemy that he still couldn't match. But it was just like the Dharma Supreme back then. Chu Yang was confident that he would definitely be able to defeat him in the end. There was also the restless extraterrestrial demon army that was about to arrive. He had to completely destroy it and eliminate all future troubles. But what about after that? What should his next step be? It was just that this problem wasn't urgent yet. He could temporarily put it aside and think about it when the time came. Today, this time, he wanted to do this experiment on a whim, and then intentionally or unintentionally set up this overall situation. In fact, this made Chu Yang feel that his footsteps had sped up again. At this point, Chu Yang could clearly feel that there was a whip called fate that was constantly whipping his body. When everyone saw Luo Kudi changing his tune, laughter shook the sky. This guy was used to bullying the weak and fearing the strong. This habit seemed to have been deeply ingrained in his bones. Chu Yang roused his spirit. He single-handedly fought with GMO and Luo Kudi. The three of them fought like madmen. They didn't hold back at all. However, GMO and Luo Kudi's tacit understanding slowly began to show signs of strain. Seeing this, Rui Butong shouted and shook his head. "I'm coming. Brothers, I'm coming to help you." He flew out and instantly turned into a majestic phoenix. That phoenix flew into the sky majestically. He thought to himself, I should be able to take less hits than GMO and Luo Kudi if I attack from the sky. Chu Yang's eyes flickered and his body flashed. Suddenly, a shadow flew into the air at an extremely fast speed. He grabbed the phoenix's sharp beak and threw it with all his might. The phoenix's entire body was pulled down from the air. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was suddenly heard. The whole ground was trembling because of it. The phoenix's huge body was thrown to the ground like a lifeless brick. It fell to the ground, and its feathers flew everywhere. It screamed loudly. Chu Yang still didn't let Rui Butong go. He even used the phoenix that he had transformed into as a weapon and swept it in all directions. GMO and Luo Kudi were suddenly faced with a new wave of fierce attacks. They were so angry that their noses were crooked. Damn it, Rui Butong, you stupid bird. Are you here to help us, or to help boss? If possible, the two really wanted to grab this damn bird and pull out all its feathers. Why is it so useless? It's better to stew it and eat it. It can at least fill our stomachs. This was worse than before. Previously, the two sides were fighting sword with sword. Even though the Calamity sword was extremely sharp, GMO and Luo Kudi's swords were also extraordinary. It was absolutely no problem for them to contend with the Calamity sword for a short period of time. Now they were facing a human-shaped weapon like Rui Butong. Could they use their swords to parry and greet? They could only dodge blindly. It was inevitable that they would be at a disadvantage. It would be better if Rui Butong didn't come to help. Rui Butong groaned again and again. His mouth was grabbed, and he had almost no room to struggle. With a thought, he turned back to his original form and broke free from Chu Yang's imprisonment. He opened his mouth and bit over. His target was Chu Yang's big hand. Chu Yang hurriedly retracted his hand. Rui Butong staggered and flew out dizzily. Chu Yang's calamity sword reappeared in his hand. One sword, one round of rapid attacks. And the three brothers were sweating profusely. I will continue to write the 5th update. Chapter 2636. If it weren't for the sudden silence of the 5 elven gods, Motianji and the others would have been at an even greater disadvantage. Even if they didn't get rid of Chu Yang, they would have still targeted the others. This extremely unexpected situation made the Saint Monarch angry and anxious. What was going on? It was such a heaven-sent opportunity, and victory was already in their hands. Why did the elves suddenly stop moving? This time, the saint was prepared to pull the elves to his side, so he mobilized a huge force. Just like what the Demon Empress said, he was going all out. He intended to settle the situation in one fell swoop. The experts that the Saint Emperor Palace brought out this time, except for the scattered people in different worlds, and the experts by the Saint Empress Shuexian'er's side. Basically no one was left out. To deal with the East Emperor Demon Empress, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yin, and the rest, all these forces had to be mobilized, plus the saint himself. Only then would he have enough chances of winning. Only then would he create an opportunity for the elves to kill Chu Yang, so that the enmity between the two sides could never be resolved. The original plan had gone quite smoothly. Chu Yang, whose strength was not inferior to Dong Huang's, had to train with his subordinates. He had to risk his life and use up all of his strength. Even the people who besieged him had lost a lot of their vital energy. It was really a self-inflicted evil. With such a heaven-sent opportunity, how could the saint seize it and launch an attack immediately? The saint's men restrained all the fighting forces except for Chu Yang and his 4 women, allowing the 5 elven gods to focus on Chu Yang and the 4 women. They didn't have to kill Chu Yang, but as long as any one of the 4 women died, given how much Chu Yang valued them, there would be no room for negotiation. It could only be a situation of life and death. But now, the saint's side was already bloody. The elves, who wanted to play the leading role, were all muted. How could the saint not be depressed? What the fuck was going on? Wasn't this too strange? Even if he was stupid, he shouldn't have done it at this time. Master Yin shouted, and the mountain river sword in his hand clashed with the demon king hook again. He flew up and said angrily, "Archer God, what are you guys doing? Why don't you take action with such a great opportunity? Do it." If not for the Demon Empress pestering him, even Lord Cloud couldn't wait to kill Chu Yang himself and get rid of this great threat. However, his urging had no effect at all. The 5 elven gods were still standing there in a daze, completely dumbstruck. At this moment, the fairy emperor's seal in the air suddenly emitted a cloud of smoke. It merged with the light on the 4 women's bodies. In the blink of an eye, the 3 gods joined forces and formed a siege. Killing intent was everywhere. The elven empress' unexpected appearance, the elven emperor's seal reappearing in such a way, and the empress's order all proved one thing. The great sage had been deceiving them all along. The 5 elven gods completely understood. This liar. Every word he said was a lie. He deliberately misled the elven race and set them up. This evil person was instantly hated to the core by the 5 elven gods, and was branded with a must-kill mark. It was just as the sage himself had said. All of the layout and arrangements now only needed one more entry point, and also one more crucial point. As long as any one of these things was confirmed, then the rest would naturally come to light. And now, such a situation had occurred. Now it was indeed a breakthrough. A key point had been accidentally exposed, and the rest would be instantly clear. However, the most ironic thing was that everything had gone against the great sage's original intention. The result was also the opposite of what he had wanted. The more he had said in the beginning, the more he would say. Now the stronger the hatred he would suffer. The more people despised him, the more they would look down on him, and the more they would want to kill him. Since the result was the opposite, the great help that he had thought he could control naturally turned into great killing intent. Moreover, he had already taken action. An unforeseen event suddenly occurred. The scene immediately fell into extreme chaos. No one would have thought that the 5 elven race experts, who had been relying on the Great Wall and thought that they were the strongest means to kill the enemy, would suddenly turn against them at such a critical moment. Moreover, they did it so thoroughly. The experts on the Holy Emperor Palace's side were not prepared at all. Some who were fighting fiercely with Motng, and the others were directly killed by the attacks from behind, just because they were in the way. Not even a trace of them was left behind. The archer god was enraged. After the first soul-chasing arrow, all the subsequent arrows were extremely destructive soul-bursting arrows. They flew out like raindrops. Most of the Holy Emperor Palace's experts had their backs facing him. In front of him were enemies who were much stronger than him. How could he be caught off guard? Without making a sound, he fell to the ground and breathed his last. He was deader than dead. Since it was a divine soul-bursting arrow, he was naturally dead. In the blink of an eye, more than 200 experts from the Holy Emperor Palace were lying dead on the ground. In that misty place, bits of light gradually rose from their corpses. In an instant, they entered the body of the saint, who was fighting with the demon empress. The archer god was shocked. His bow and arrow almost flew out of his hands. He shouted angrily, "Cloudmaster!" But now at this moment, they only felt a heartfelt sadness. How pitiful was this woman? Who could reject such an excessive request? At this moment, Chu Yang was also a little sad, but also a little amused. Now he had basically reached the realm of immortality. If he could go one step further, he would even reach the realm of immortality. If that was the case, how could he have a next life? Seeing that Chu Yang didn't give an answer for a long time, the Elven Empress' eyes gradually dimmed. She said dejectedly, "Forget it." The 5 elven gods stared at Chu Yang with murderous eyes. Each of them looked as if they wanted to beat this guy into powder. Her Majesty is about to disappear from this world. What can you do by coaxing her? It's just a sentence. Will you die? Or will you lose something? Do you have to be so hypocritical? Little bastard, little bastard. Anyway, no matter what you say, it's impossible. We don't need you to take responsibility. Are you not even willing to say a sentence? Chu Yang suddenly smiled and said, "Her Majesty is a beauty that can topple nations. She's devastatingly beautiful and gentle. I also like her very much." The Elven Empress' eyes lit up. Full of hope, she asked, "Then if there's a next life, how about I marry you?" This woman didn't even try to hide her feelings for him. She was so pure yet so eager. Chu Yang nodded gently and said with a smile, "Okay." The Elven Empress suddenly smiled. Her eyes were full of tears. Looking at Chu Yang reluctantly, she said, "I know you're coaxing me, but I'm still very happy. I love you, Chu Yang. Do you know when you didn't know my name, you once said, 'You'll dance with me, Qiong Xiao, and I'll conquer the world with you.' I believe that at that time, you didn't know that Qiong Xiao was my name. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.